Hello, hello. We're here with Mike and Joe. How are you guys doing?
We're well, thank you.
We're doing great.
Please introduce yourself to the audience so we get a little idea of who you are for those who don't know.
You go first.
Why did you go first? Yes, sir.
So I'm Mike Edelstein. I've done other podcasts, so you may have seen me before. I'm a retired professor. I've spent 50 years as a college professor, 47 of them at a place called Ramapo College of New Jersey, where I was the head of the environmental studies and sustainability programs for a extended period of time. I'm an environmental psychologist, and I've been practicing for more than 50 years. And as part of that, one of my key foci has been on how we create a sustainable world, how we address our own environments, the buildings we live in, and the landscape around us. And I've headed a nonprofit corporation, which I'm now emeritus head of, called Orange Environment in Orange County, New York. We've been doing that for 43 years. Besides being a professor and dealing with students on campus issues and trying to move sustainability forward in that venue, I've tried to do it in my own community and my own life.
My name is Joseph Grizzanti, by profession a pulmonologist and allergist immunologist. Purchased a farm 62 miles outside of New York City, and it's about 100 acres, and it was an abandoned apple orchard. And my son, who was 13 at the time, became interested in apples. We started making cider, became a farm winery, and rebuilt the orchard, planted new varieties, planted new modern trees, which are all dwarf, growing on trellises. It's called a vertical axis or French axis system. If you go down the rows, it looks more like grapevines than apples, but it's more productive, easier to deal with. It requires less work, means fertilizer, pesticide, etc. There are no downsides to it. So the apple orchard grew, and we decided we were going to make hard cider. Cider in America is basically apple juice. Cider in Europe means that it has alcohol in it. Here we call cider with alcohol part of cider. So that was going to be our main product. And that has grown tremendously through the years. We're actually one of the largest cider producers now.
People see dark cider. This is dark.
Right. If you're in California now,
Yeah, I love cider. Big cider fan. So
okay,
I have to look out for dog.
For dogs. I think it's in Whole Foods in California. About 5 years ago, I became aware that we don't see as many bugs as we used to see. It was just an observation. If you brush hog a field, which means you cut the grass, the barn swallows would follow the tractor because there'd be caterpillars. And that would be obvious now, and they would eat the caterpillars. So you would have a flock of birds following the tractor. It was actually going down.
Except for the caterpillars.
But is that my observation, or is this real? A little research made me aware of the fact that we have a huge problem with insect decline. Remember, the insects are at the bottom of the food web. So it really is the most important chemical reaction on Earth is photosynthesis, which takes carbon dioxide and sunlight and makes oxygen and sugar. Everything follows from that. Insects come along and eat the sugar, make protein. Then the birds eat the insect, and everything follows. The insects pollinate 70% of our plants. Insect decline is a very serious problem. E.O. Wilson, a famous biologist, believed that if all the insects were gone, man would be gone in 6 months. It's a problem on many things. So we would have no atmosphere. We would have nothing to breathe if it weren't for plants. If nothing's pollinating the plants, we're all going to be in trouble.
How do we bring back the insects?
we feed them. The basic problem is starvation. Their habitat is being destroyed and they don't have food. Problems with GMO crops, where large areas of the Midwest, for instance, are sprayed with herbicide. All those weeds in hedgerows that we used to have that fed insects aren't there anymore. Yes, there's more corn and it's more productive, but that's not a food source for a declining insect population. So habitat is being destroyed because of herbicides, because of development. The end result of that is starvation. The monarch is the canary in the gold mine, so to speak. The monarch has declined 85%, be extinct in 40 years. And it's the solution is plant milkweed. The good news is 400 million acres of land. For instance, 86% of all the land east of the Mississippi is privately owned. People don't, and all we have to do is convince them to take a chunk of their lawn, which doesn't benefit anything environmentally, and plant native plants. And we can solve the problem. That land mass, over 400, 500 million acres, is bigger than all the national forests and all the national parks put together. So it is a solvable problem. And it's just a matter of education and reimagining the lawn.
What's interesting about this, we want to have large holdings, preserving farmland, creating parks, etc. But what Joe's talking about is something that moves solving this crisis, into the realm where each of us has some control. It's not what the government does. It's not what large holders do. This is what small holders do. And so this is a solvable crisis in a way that also allows it to become essentially a movement of people who are just interested in their own properties, but also interested in contributing to addressing a problem that is a global crisis. So this is under our control. So psychologically, this is a very inviting way to think about this. And Joe, you were going to head next into the lawns.
But to follow up what you said, I think there's another important point, and that is that this is not and should not be a political issue. This is not a right-wing, left-wing, liberal, conservative issue. Bringing people in, talking to them, builds bridges and finds common ground.
Every butterfly has a right wing and a left wing.
I like that. It appeals to everybody, and there's no downside. You're talking about people spending $5 billion a year on fertilizer, take up 10 times more pesticide use and fertilizer use than all the farmland in America combined. 50% of all the water used in suburban and urban areas is used to water grass. Think about it.
I'm a landowner. Maybe I own a small, maybe it's less than an acre. Maybe I own a balcony. What can I do? And I want to bring back the insects. What can I do to transform my space?
If you have a lawn, you said, let's do the acre first. You could take 100 square feet or 200 square feet and plant native plants. They're beautiful. They're low maintenance. They're drought resistant. In order to make it beautiful, requires water, requires fertilizer, requires pesticides.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing statistics. Just 200 million gallons of gasoline in lawnmowers.
And the air pollution.
And lawnmowers pollute more than cars. For instance, running a lawnmower for an hour is equivalent to driving a car for 350 miles.
And their climate impacts too. One thing I want to stress before Joe continues is that we're talking about tiny habitats. And what Joe's saying is true. You can start this at the smallest scale. If it works and you're happy with it and you have more land, you grow it. It just expands. But you don't have to start on a massive scale. You can start at whatever scale is going to work for you.
And-
But it's important thing is to start. And I just want to comment about balconies. There has been an amazing revolution in container growing. In the United States, there's a company called Gardener's Supply that's really driven this. Even on the smallest space, whatever size balcony or patio or whatever someone has, you can do an amazing amount of growing at a small space. So this is not a constraint. You can have your tiny habitat even if you don't have any land property at all.
Containers with native plants. And again, I go around proselytizing about don't be rigid. For instance, there's a native plant called Lateris, blazing star, which is a monarch magnet. It's beautiful. It's drought resistant. Another one would be lobelia, which is cardinal flower. And it's a hummingbird magnet. And throw in some annuals. So it's clearly going to be prettier than your lawn. It won't require as much maintenance. It will require no fertilizer. And native plants are tough. They're meant to be here. Lawn.
What do you say to the people who say, no, I love my lawn. My dog gets to run around the lawn. My kids are running around on it. Like,
What we say to them is, we agree. We love our lawns too. We do all those things also. But how much of it do you need? Ask yourself, how much of it do you need? The concept that I try to get across is reimagine it. Understand that it was a status of the wealthy and it's not supposed to be here, but we all like it. I want to keep some of my lawn. I'm perfectly willing to get rid of 50%. But even if you're willing to get rid of 10%, it's a beginning.
I'm up to getting rid of maybe 95% or more. The whole point is that people need to feel comfortable with what they're doing and try things and see how it works. Psychologically, there's an important point here, which is perception. We are so used to thinking about buildings having lawns. This is what we have in our brain. Whatever the costs that Joe talked about in terms of mowing and fertilizing and watering and pesticiding and all this stuff, creating hazards and using resources carelessly. It's just part of what the cost of having that lawn is. We envision a world of buildings with lawns surrounding them. But as you begin to experiment with alternatives, you change perception. Now you have other images of landscapes. And these three-dimensional landscapes that you create, because the lawn is a one-dimensional landscape, these three-dimensional landscapes that you create are stimulating. They're invigorating. They cause one to de-stress because of the experience of moving through them. They change constantly. Every day of the year is different. You can walk the same property day after day, even different times of the day, and you have different experiences. This really creates what, as humans, makes us enlivened. We spend so much of our time in offices, in front of computers, on phones. This is a chance for us to actually turn our properties into places that we ourselves can have much deeper experiences on. It's just an incredible opportunity to accomplish lots of things in one way. You're just hitting all the positives and you do it at your own pace. Do it in the way that works for you. Nobody's pushing you. This is something you voluntarily undertake. You have to want to do it. But hopefully, as we continue talking, you understand why it's a good idea and it doesn't have any downsides.
This builds bridges. It allows us to talk to people who we ordinarily don't think as belonging to our tribe, or they don't believe they belong to our tribe. And it's a way of bringing people in and starting conversations and doing something that is extremely environmentally positive.
Yeah. Would you have any comments or questions?
I was going to piggyback on that. We're all social animals and we're all from dust you were born and dust you shall return. I saw that quote in the catacombs. And it's like, we are nature. We are part of nature. And getting back to it is not just good for us. It's good for the planet, bringing us together again as we're separating ourselves more and more every year.
This is a very healing process. And I'll add one other dimension, which is we've been talking about insects, which are, as Joe has pointed out, the foundation of life. But at the same time, we have other animals that we share the earth with, and they don't have habitat. One of the things that I've been playing with everywhere I've ever lived, by growing productive landscapes, I create environments in which I get to share that landscape with others. And I was talking before about the fact that more pawpaw trees have started producing pawpaws, and I was waiting to see if they were ripe. This morning, I found one on the ground, half eaten, and I realized that I didn't have to decide if it was ripe because the opossums that live on my property had already figured out that it was ripe. And I have encountered possums directly and have a relationship with them, not that they're pets, but I love seeing them. There's just so much life. If you counted all the different wildlife that lives on my property compared to what was there before, we have rabbits that run around all over the place, for example. You begin to increase the whole flow of life through your property. And that's something that has very few downsides and amazing upsides. It just creates so much value in life.
But again, all those animals are dependent on insects.
Of course, the whole we're talking about food chain.
If there are no insects, the trout population declines dramatically because they eat mayflies. The fish population declines. The amount of caterpillars required to raise a hatchling is absolutely amazing. Like 850 caterpillars, depending on the bird, 850 caterpillars a day. Talk about a mom doing a lot of work. So the North American bird population has declined by 3 billion.
If you go outside on my property and close your eyes, what you hear are all kinds of birds. My property is teeming with birds. My neighbor's property has a bird here and there, but by and large, you create habitat, as Joe's pointing out, create food, and then you start populating it. It's just so wonderful to listen to the birds over the course of the day. It's just adds such it's an aural dimension to all the visual and tactile dimensions.
It's actually mind-boggling. We've only been doing it for 2 years, and the number of insects that have increased and the butterflies has just been remarkable. And the birds. We plant a lot of echinacea, coneflowers. Coneflower not only are a great nectar source, food source for multiple pollinators, but goldfinches love them. Our motto has been, if you plant it, they will come. And guess what? It's 100% growing.
This just adds so much to life in general and also our own lives.
If you plant it, they will come. I love that so much.
The other thing is signage is really important. We have signs now on every plant telling people about it, and they love to learn. We have signs about the eastern monarch. So, there was a western monarch and an eastern monarch, east of the Rockies, west of the Rockies, and they have different migration routes. So we're concerned about the eastern monarch because we live in New York,
That's
concerned about the western. And people love to learn about it.
I've been into arboretum for a long time. What we're really talking about is taking the concepts that an arboretum would have, where you have trees that are labeled and they become educative. So it's an educative forest. We're applying that even to pollinator plants very effectively. Joe's property, which is the Warwick Valley Winery, attracts thousands of people. On a given day, it may have thousands of people. And what we realized is it's possible by setting up beautiful gardens, setting up the signage that Joe's talking about, doing programs like pollinator programs, having educators on hand, selling plants, giving away milkweed, and then people buy other plants to go with it. We've got this educative process set up, which we are building on, but it's taking actively used public private space, the winery, which attracts
Diverse group of people.
everybody. And they are learning initially passively and increasingly actively, and then they become engaged directly because they can take some of it home with them and do it on their own property.
And the concept of growing milkweed and giving it away has been just so much fun and such an attraction. People love it. Okay, what do I do with it? And you tell them, you go home and you plant it. Just plant it in your garden, whatever you have in that garden. And it works.
Other comments? You were asking about public spaces before.
I have the time for one more question. That going into fall and now coming into winter, what are some things people can do? Can you plant in the fall? What can people do this season?
Actually, the fall in a lot of ways is the best time to plant. So this is a great time to lay the foundation for your garden for next year. And there's some things that you then add to in the spring. But the fall is a wonderful time to plant. As the temperatures drop, I wake up in the morning, go outside and say, it's planting weather. And I have to find something to plant because I love to plant things.
Yeah. Fall's a good time to plant. And the other things you could do is not rake your leaves, because leaves are habitat for insects. Insects are important for birds, especially in the winter.
And they also help insulate.
Why do we rake our leaves then?
So why do we mow our grass? I think our message is reimagining. Understand where it came from, understand the consequence. And it's important to think differently.
You go outside or you open your window and there's all these loud leaf blowers going on and everybody around you is blowing their leaves into piles on the street. One of my mottos is never export your biomass. Whatever grows on my property, I compost if I don't have another use for it. And in the case of the leaves, I leave my leaves out in the winter. You rake them in the spring, you can still compost them. You just get them off the plants so the plants can come back in the spring. You don't export your biomass. Everything is part of your own productivity. We're really talking about how you take whatever property you have, even if it's a balcony, and make it into a productive landscape. That's what we're really talking about, with all the benefits that we've highlighted.
You brought up some really important things. I feel like people aren't really talking about insects much. I feel like that's overlooked. So I'm really glad to bring light to this. And it was an honor talking to you guys. And I'm going to look out for Dawn's cider.
Yeah.
Next time I go to Whole Foods, I'll be looking. Cheers. Let's get more bugs.
Come visit us in New York.
I will. Everyone's moving to New York right now. I don't know what's going on. Thank you so much for your time. Happy Friday. And
yeah, nice talking to you. All right.
So what is your nonprofit and where can people find it?
Okay, the nonprofit is Orange Environment Incorporated. The website is orangeenvironment.com. And the specific project that we've been talking about, Joe, you can...
is the Hudson Valley Pollinator Project. The goal is to talk to people about reimagining their lawn, growing milkweed, and giving it away. And giving away one species of milkweed. So there are maybe 10 of them that will grow in the Northeast, but there's one that's very pretty. And it's sort of a perfect plant. It's about 3 foot high. It looks like it's orange. It's in bloom for months. It's drought resistant once it's established. And it's a nectar source for multiple insects, including the monarch. But the monarch butterfly will lay its eggs on it, and that's the key. The monarch will only lay her eggs on milkweed. The caterpillars will only eat milkweed because they've evolved with it.
Orange Environment has many different projects, but among them is a permaculture project where we teach people how to do a whole variety of sustainable living activities. I just harvested mushrooms. We teach people how to grow mushrooms. We also have a public garden project where we help plant public gardens intended to promote insect development. But cut us off before we do.
All right, you cut off.
It's a pleasure
Just kidding.
speaking to you.
I
Thank
wish
you
I
for
didn't have to go. So nice to speak. I hope to speak again soon.
Good talking to you. Good meeting you.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.